Welcome back to lesson 6.2, Solve General Applications of Percent. This lesson is part of Math 020 pre-algebra course taught at St. Louis Community College. The recording is made by Dr. Victoria Shearing. In this short lesson, we have two objectives: solve problems using percent proportion, and we're going to solve problems using percent equation. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so from the previous section that we just did from the previous lesson, 6.1, we learned how to convert percents to fractions, or how to represent percent as a fraction, and how to represent percent as a decimal. All right, so using percent as a fraction, we're going to place percent over 100, so P over 100, and then P stands for percent. And then using percent as decimals, we're going to move decimal point twice to the, we need to move decimal point twice to the left. Point. Two times. So if I have 25%, that is going to convert to 0.25. Or if I have 25%, that's going to be 25 over 100, or 1 over 4. All right, so just quick review what we did in 6.1. All right, so in example 1, we are going to use a proportion to solve a percent. All right. So first we're going to set up a proportion. Here's the general rule of setting up a proportion. Going back to percent, you can represent percent using a fraction as placing that percent over 100. All right, so in your proportion, you are going to have the left side and the right side. On your right side, you are going to have your percent over 100, and on the right side, on the left side, I'm sorry, you are going to have the part of a number, and you're going to have a whole number. All right, part and a whole equals percent and 100. In other words, all right, so let me go ahead and be a little bit more specific. What I mean as a part and a whole. Okay. Of is going to go here. All right, and then you will have a part of a number. Part of number. So that whole number is going to be on the bottom, and the part's going to be on top. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our problem. So now we're going to practice placing everything into our percent proportion. All right, so we're going to set it up. And one thing for sure, we're always going to have 100 in the denominator on the right side. All right, so because this is your 100%, let's read our problem. We have what number is 15% of 80. All right, so 15% have to go with the percent. So 15 over 100. Of goes on the bottom, so 80. And then, of course, in the proportion, you always have three numbers and the unknown. So what number? We're looking for the x that represents 15% of 100, 15% of number 80. All right, Then we're going to use our cross product. We have 100x equals, I just need to figure out what is 80 times 15. Turns out to be 1,200. All right, and then we're going to divide everything by 100. And the x equals 12. So 12 is 15% of 80. All right. Again, make sure that you have this proportion down. Part of a number is always going to be on top of the entire number is going to be on the bottom. On the other side, you will have some percent value over 100. All right, so let's look at the next one. 50% of what number is 45? Okay. All right, so again, let's go ahead and set up so that's our rule is of 100%. All right, so let's see what we have here. We always have 100. So before you even look at the problem, you always put 100 down. We have 50%, so 50 goes with 100. Okay, so 50% of what number? We don't know of what. So that's going to be our x, and is 45. Now it's going up on top. All right, so we have 50x equals 4,500. When you divide by 50, you will have x equals 80. 90, I'm sorry, not 80, 90. I'm not even tired. Okay, x equals 90. Okay, let's look at the next one. That one is asking what percent of 90 is 36. Okay, so we do not have percent here, so that's what we're looking for. All right, so let's go ahead and set up our proportion, 100. We do not know that percent because that's what we're looking for, what percent. Now we just need to figure out where 90 and 36 goes. Of 90, so of goes always on at the bottom, is 36. You have 36 over 90 equals x over 100. So we have 90x equals 3,600 divided by 90. So I would do 360 divided by 9. So x equals 40. Okay. So it is, this time, it's actually 40%. That's our answer. Okay, a couple of more. But this one is actually using decimal equation. So I need to give you that decimal equation. And I think it's down on the bottom here. Yes. So the decimal equation is actually boils down to this sentence. So what you're looking at when you're reading your problem, you're trying to get it down to the sentence, and then once you have the sentence, you can have the equation. Okay. All right. So we have part is, so we're going to have some part is percent of whole number of whole. All right, so you have a part is a percent of a whole. Okay, and then we can then transform this into a proportional decimal equation. So let's go ahead and look at this. All right, I highly encourage everybody to stick to one method, but I am required to teach you both. Okay, so 92% of 650 is what number? Okay, so here what we're going to do is we are going to change our percent into a decimal, because using decimal equation. So the 92% is going to be 0.92 of is a multiplication, 650. We saw that when we were studying in Unit 1, in Chapter 1, how we can represent multiplication of was one of those words. So you have 0.92 times 650 is your equal sign. So is multiplication. So we're just translating this into the equation. And then what number? So here, all we need to do is just multiply. Okay, because this is not solving equation. We are just looking for that number. So we're doing 0.92 times 650, and we have 598. So 598. All right. So the next one again, let's go ahead and read this sentence and put it into the equation. 140% of what number is 350? All right. So first is we are converting 140% into a decimal number. So that would be 1.4. Of is the multiplication symbol, so times. We do not know what number, so we're going to put x. So 1.4 times x equals 350. Is always equal sign. All right, so here's our equation. 1.4 times x equals 350. So all we need to do is divide by 1.4. So we have 350 divided by 1.4. We have, that should give us 250. No. 350 divided by 1.4. 140% of what number is 350? Yes, correct. That is 250. So 140% of 250 is 350, because yes, 350, 140% has to be bigger than the initial number. All right, but I was getting it wrong. All right, so last one. 1 is what percent of 20? So again, let's write that as an equation. 1 is what percent of 20? So x times 20. Then you will divide by 20. And then you have x equals, and then we just need to divide 1 over 20, 0.05. Okay. So when you solve the percent problem, like we just said, so we have the part is percent of a whole number. That's your general rule. All right. So I am going back to, for the next couple of examples, or whatever examples we have, I am going to use my proportion. I feel more comfortable with cross product and proportion. All right. So Nikki has read 198 pages of a 660-page book. What percent of the book has he read? So 198 pages and then 660-page book. All right. So this would be a part of the book, which is, and this would be your whole book, which is of. All right. So remember, for the proportion, I have 100%, I have percent. I have is and I have of here. All right, so let's go ahead and set it up. So I have 198 of 660 is what percent over 100? Always over 100. All right, so I have 660x equals 198 to 0. So at that point, I just take the 19,800 and divide it by 660. So that would be x equals 30. And that was 30%. So I can put the percent back in. Okay, notice that we're not using percent until we actually have the answer. We never put mixed percent with numbers in a problem. Okay. Example number 4. In a study, 34% of adults aged 20 and over were obese. If 600 adults were studied, how many were obese? All right. So again, I have 3 numbers here. That's all I need for my proportion. I just need to make a sense out of what I have. So 34% is going to go with 100. Okay. Age 20 or over does not make any difference, so I'm not going to look at those numbers. So 600 adults were studied. So that is the total, so that's going to be my of. So I'm going to set up my proportion over 100. I got my 34 as a percent of 600. All right, and I do not know that number. How many people represent 34% of 600? Right, so I will have 100x equals 20,400, and then divide by 100, x equals 204 people. Be very careful not to get decimal here. You shouldn't. And if you get some weird like 204.5, it means you did something wrong because we can't have partial people. Okay. All right, a couple of more examples to practice more with this proportion, with the percent proportion. At the Lonesome Pine Range, 2,475 head of cattle became infected with a hoof and mouth disease. If this represents 45% of the herd, how many head of cattle were in the herd? So we don't know the total, which we don't know the of. Okay, we only know how many were sick, but not everybody was sick. Okay, so we have 3 numbers, 2,475, we have 45, and we do not know how many were in the herd. So how many in the herd? So which is my of, I have is, and I have my P. All right, so I have, start with 100, so 45 over 100, 2,475, and I don't know how many total. Okay, so I have 45x, sorry, I don't like this 45, equals 2,475 and 20. 2,475,20. Now we're going to divide everything by 45. So we have x equals 5,500. All right. So roughly half of the cattle were sick, and the total herd was 5,500. All right. From 2000 to 2007, the number of registered vehicles on the road in the United States increased by 3%. In 2000, the number of vehicles on the road were 240 million. Find the increase in the number of vehicles on the road. So what it's asking you to do is basically find 3% of 240 million. Okay, so let's set up our proportion. The number of vehicles were 240. So that's a, now I take it back. The number of vehicles on the road was 240. Yeah, that's correct. So that's, I need to find 3% of that 240. So I have my X. All right, so I have 100X. And then 240 times 3 is 720. And then X equals 72. And remember, the units were millions. Million. So that's how many more new vehicles were there. Does that make sense? 7.2 million. I'm missing a decimal. 7.2 million. This is divided by 100. Find the total number of registered vehicles on the road in 2007. Okay. So we had 240 in 2000. We added 7.2 million. So we're going to do 240 plus 7.2. We'll have 247.2 million vehicles. So take what you started, add what you increased by. You have 247.2 million vehicles. All right. 2 more problems. Okay. Example number 7. The freshman class of 775 students is 31% of the student body at Euclid University. How many students go to Euclid University? So this one is tricky because it says of 775 students, and you might think that that is your of, but it's only freshman class. So we're looking for the entire student body that has freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and senior class. So the 775, this number 775 is actually is. Okay, how many students is your of? Okay, and then of course you have your 31%, which is your P. All right, so ready for our percent proportion. Start with 100. You have your 31%. 775 was your is, and then you do not know because that's a bigger number because 775 is only part of that bigger number. So cross product, you have 31x equals 77,500. And then we're going to divide by 31. So 77,500 divided by 31 is going to give us 2,500. Yeah, 30%. Okay, so that is our solution here. And the last but not least, we have here Sampo belongs to his local food cooperative where he receives a percentage of what he spends each year as a dividend. He spent $3,850 last year at the food cooperative store and received a dividend of $154. What percent of total spending did he receive as dividend? I keep misspelling that word. All right. So we know that the 154 is part of the 3,850. So let's go ahead and highlight what we have. We have 2 numbers. All right. So the dividend is part of what he spent. So that would be is, and the 3,850 is going to be our of. And we know we're going to have 100. So we have our 3 numbers. We're ready to set up our proportion. So we have 100 on the bottom. We do not know the percent. We do know that 154 was part of 3,850. So we need to find out what's 154, what percent of 3,850 is 154. So we have 3850x equals 15,400. Then we're going to divide by 3850, both sides. All right, so we just need to find out what is 15,400 divided by 3,850. And that is x equals 4%. So he got 4% back of everything that he spent on food. That is all for lesson 6.2. Thank you for watching.